Now, Celtic has been warned it faces legal action if it fails to meet victims of the paedophile James Torbett. On Monday, the founder of the Celtic Boys Club was jailed for 6 years after being found guilty of sexually abusing 3 boys. Celtic faced criticism for its silence on the verdict. One of Torbett's victims, Kenny Campbell, accused the Parkhead club of pleading the fifth.
Why not just write a letter of apology? Or come somebody personally and deliver a letter of apology? That's all it takes. It takes nothing else. It takes hundreds of money and motors and houses. It takes things like that. It's just a simple sorry that happened to you.
Well, yesterday the club issued a statement expressing deep regret and sympathy for the victims, insisting it had taken the allegations of abuse extremely seriously because of historic contacts with the boys' club. But this morning the lawyer who represents some of Torbett's victims has called on Celtic to go further, to live up to its moral responsibilities and meet those who say they suffered abuse during their years at the boys' club. That solicitor is Patrick McGuire. He's with us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
And what would you like to happen at that meeting?
Well, the simple fact here is that Torbett was convicted during the week. The evidence was absolutely clear. Celtic at first said absolutely nothing. Next, yesterday, they issued a statement that was frankly insipid. It said nothing. The only thing that it attempted to say was that there was this quotations entirely separate organisation in the form of Celtic's Boys Club that was responsible. That's just simply nonsense. Today, we speak to every director personally. We ask them to look at themselves in the mirror and to face up to their moral responsibilities, but more than that, their legal obligations. That is to sit down with me as the representatives of my own clients and to begin the negotiations immediately to ensure that those clients see the financial justice to which they're entitled. That's full financial redress.
Kenny Campbell seemed to be suggesting there, though, that he just wanted an apology. He said cars and houses, etc. wouldn't change his situation. He just wants them to acknowledge what had happened to him. Is he different in that situation to some of your other clients?
Kerry is actually not different in that respect. What we're talking about here is the word that you used, acknowledgement. Acknowledging the wrongs of the past, facing up to their responsibilities. Of course that means an apology, but hand in glove with that also goes, as facing up to what happened, paying full financial redress. It's all part and parcel of the same thing, and that's why Celtic now need to do that.
How much redress do they want financially?
Every case will be judged on its own merit. There's a very clear basis upon which the courts award compensation. We say every victim is entitled to exactly what they're entitled to under the law. In each case, when it comes to it, and we very much hope it will be judged on that basis in their own rights.
And is it your contention that if Celtic don't come to the table and issue that apology and negotiate with the victims here, that there'll be redress in the courts?
You know, despite their statement yesterday, Celtic should be under absolutely no illusion about that fact whatsoever. Today we're giving them the chance to do the right thing. Today we're asking them to face up to their moral responsibility. But there's a very clear legal obligation underscoring that. So absolutely, 100%, if they do not come to the table, if they do not do the right thing, they will be facing us across the courtroom.
They said in their statement the abuse of children is an issue affecting many areas of society, including a large number of football clubs, sports clubs, youth organisations, educational institutions and religious bodies across Britain. There seems to be a suggestion in that they're being singled out in some way, are they?
I think that's just complete and utter nonsense, isn't it? Of course, our country, sadly, is marred with a legacy of abuse in so many different settings. We ask every institution responsible for every abuser to do the right thing. The simple fact is that this is now current because of what happened during the week. Celtic shouldn't take some sort of victim mentality here. The fact is insulting that they'd even go down that road. We are asking Celtic, in their own right, for their own past wrongs, to do the right thing.
They say that these allegations regarding abuse at Celtic's Boys Club first emerged in the 1990s. They say after these allegations became known, Celtic Football Club took steps to develop a new code of conduct and procedures to protect young people. Since then, they've been at the leading edge of putting welfare and safeguarding protections in place for young people. Do you believe that their responsibility for this predates the 1990s?
I think that's a matter that will come out in court if it comes to it. I was very interested, shall we say, in that particular comment, that they would choose to pin their colours to such a mast. So factually, I assume that they took legal advice on it. But what I will say is that there is evidence to the contrary, and perhaps no more should be said about that at this moment. But it's questionable at best.
I suppose ultimately, and just finally, the question of all of this will hinge on how close or otherwise the links were between the Boys Club and Celtic FC. And as you mentioned at the beginning, they say in their statement, Celtic Football Club is an entirely separate organisation.
That's indeed what they say. We say factually that is simply incorrect, that the two organisations, even if the Boys Club was a separate legal entity, which in itself is questionable, the two organisations were utterly intertwined. But the law has been developing in this area for a very long time in terms of what's called vicarious responsibility. The connection, both financial and institutional, between the two is a very significant factor. And I think you've hit the nail on the head with the other point. When was it that the club, Celtic Football Club, knew or ought to have known about what was going on, and when should that club have taken action? Was it in the 90s? I have evidence to the contrary.
Just very briefly, if you wouldn't mind, how long do they have to come to the table before legal action?
Well, the survivors of this abuse have been waiting for a very long time. They won't wait much longer.
Thanks for speaking to us this morning. Patrick McGuire with Thompsons Solicitors. 18 minutes to 8.